What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and we are continuing, as promised, with more coverage of Astarion's Book of Hungers. This time, we're going to be talking about all of the feats, and we have all manner of feats in this book: origin, general, and epic boons. We're going to cover them all in this video, so I will have timestamps in the video description if you want to jump ahead to one group or another. So anyway, we're going to just dive in, but, hey, beforehand, please consider subscribing to the channel and, do all the YouTube things, like the video, all that. It drives it up in the algorithm. Just a couple clicks for you guys does a lot to help promote the channel and allow me to keep doing fun stuff like this. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. As a reminder, this is a digital-only option at the moment. Who knows if it'll end up in print in some form, but currently it is only available to those who did kind of the pre-order on D&D Beyond. So first up, we have Timeless Reveler. These are the 3 origin feats. Reminder that origin feats are designed to be the ones you take at level 1. They're tied to a background, potentially, or as a human who gets a feat at first level. Tireless Reveler. When an ally you can see within 60 feet of you expends Heroic Inspiration, you gain Heroic Inspiration if you lack it. You can use this benefit proficiency bonus times per short or long rest. So that's actually pretty good if you're in the instance, especially if you have allies who have consistent access to Heroic Inspiration. Champion Fighter comes to mind, right? Humans get Heroic Inspiration every morning when they wake up. I think it's level 10 Champion Fighters. If they start their turn without Heroic Inspiration, they can just give it to themselves, which means they're going to be expending it pretty consistently. Therefore, you could basically be relying on this, again, proficiency bonus times per short or long rest, which isn't a bad one. It just, again, depends on how frequently you're going to have Heroic Inspiration being spent in your game. But this is definitely something, especially if it's going to be tied to a background or something, that you're never going to miss having, because it will be useful whenever it comes up. Vampire Hunter, nice to see this kind of making an appearance as some sort of cool option in the game. You have advantage on checks to escape from non-magical restraints or the grappled condition. Again, making you're a vampire hunter. Vampires are often grabbing people to bite them. You're good at escaping that. Also, Vitality Ward. When you take necrotic damage, you can take a reaction to mitigate that damage. Roll a number of d6s equal to your proficiency bonus, then add them together. Reduce the necrotic damage taken by this total. That is usable once per short or long rest. Again, it's obviously said here and designed to be for vampire hunters, but this could be useful just to anybody who wants to be out there dealing with necrotic damage or undead. This should apply post resistance, so you'll be able to reduce the damage further beyond. If you say have resistance to necrotic damage, this will allow you to talk it down even further. Or lastly here, Vampire's Plaything. When you finish a long rest, you can create 1 potion of life or antitoxin as long as you have an empty vial or flask. These liquids evaporate when you finish a long rest. Timely Retreat. You can take a bonus action to take the dash or disengage action here, and you can use this benefit proficiency bonus times per long rest. And then Vampiric Connection. The DM determines the fate of your former vampire master. While you and your former vampire master are on the same plane of existence, the vampire can communicate with you telepathically, and you can choose to allow the vampire to perceive through your senses. Again, if you are a vampire's plaything, this is kind of like your Renfield style things. You get some benefits for yourself, but they also kind of know where you are. And then this is obviously also a very good narrative tool, perhaps very good usage in something like a Curse of Strahd campaign or whatnot, but either way. We have some little interjections here from Astarion. You might ask, are these tricks best for fighting or for seduction? And I say, my darlings, why not both? Sorry, I should have probably try to emulate newborn there, but either way. All right, moving into the general feats. Now, these are all designed for level 4+. We have Bloodlust. Increase your strength, dex, or con by 1 to a maximum of 20. When you roll hit point dice to regain hit points, you can treat any roll of a 1 or a 2 as a 3. I actually really like that we're seeing this as a mechanic throughout all of the book's subclasses and things. This concept of whatever it might be, whether it's damage, like we see with the new version of Great Weapon Master, the new version of Great Weapon Fighting, or what have you, this concept of treating the rolls of a 1 or a 2 as a 3. We saw that, I think that's the Scion of the 3 rogue, treats rolls of 1s or 2s as 3 on sneak attack. And then we have Sanguine Feast. Once per turn, when you hit a bloodied creature that isn't a construct or undead with an attack roll, you can expend one of your hit dice and regain a number of hit points equal to the number rolled plus your constitution modifier. This is usable proficiency bonus times per long rest. It's not bad. I mean, again, especially if you have means of spending hit dice outside of just short rests. And again, it does specifically say to regain hit points, because I know we've seen some new subclasses that can use hit dice to modify or augment their spell casting or their damage rolls. Something like the Bloodshed Blade, for example. Unfortunately, it doesn't work for that. It only works when you're using it to regain hit points. This could pair well with the Durable Feat, which does allow you to roll hit dice, I think, as a bonus action. And then again, if you hit somebody that's, less than half health, you're able to get yourself a little bit of healing, but it's okay. I like it in concept, but I don't think it's very strong. Then we have Bomber here at level 4 as well, right? Increase your dex by 1 to a maximum of 20. Far Lobber, when you use an action to throw a vial or flask, you can target an object or creature you can see that's within 40 feet of yourself. I believe that's typically 20 feet. And then long shots, attacking at long range doesn't impose disadvantage on your attacks with thrown weapons. Again, if you're someone throwing flasks or bombs or knives or whatever it is, this just kind of makes you a little bit better at that. Cloying Mists. Increase your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma score by 1. And then Arise Fog. You have the Fog Cloud spell prepared. You can cast it without a spell slot. You must finish this long rest before you can do so again. You can also cast it using any spell slots you have of the appropriate level. And then you use the spellcasting ability modifier you increased to cast this. So that's a thing. So just at base level, increase a casting stat rate, intelligence, wisdom, or charisma by 1. Fog Cloud always prepared, and you get 1 freebie usage of Fog Cloud every long rest, and then can use it with spell slots. But then you also have Grasping Mist. Whenever you cast Fog Cloud, non-magical flames in the spell's sphere are extinguished, and creatures other than you and your allies have their speed reduced by 5 feet while within the spell sphere. Now, that's not when you cast it without a spell slot. That's any time you cast Fog Cloud. And Fog Cloud is, a 20-foot radius sphere. Reminder, it is also heavily obscured, which effectively blinds those in it, and it will slightly cut the movement speed now of enemies, which is actually pretty nice. I do like that this is kind of just like, it gives you some utility of the spell, and then just gives you extra bonuses on how you cast it. It'd be even better if somehow you could make it, or you had a way to be able to see through Fog Cloud if you have like blind sight or something. This could go a long way to really boost the utility of this spell. We have Delicious Pain. Increase ability score of your choice by 1, and then Toughened Flesh. Immediately after you take bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage, you can take a reaction to gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing damage until the start of your next turn. This is once per short or long rest. This is obviously, I'm assuming, would be something you'd want to have. Obviously, if you're not a barbarian, right? Barbarians get access to this pretty regularly with a form of rage. But I mean, you think about this. My first thought was probably something like a monk or maybe a fighter, somebody that's going to be a paladin, right, in the thick of things. But this also would be very useful on a caster who gets hit like unexpectedly. Being able to just cut that damage in half would actually be really nice. Lightbringer. We have increase your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma score by 1. Sacred Magic. You learn the light spell and can cast it without any material components. If you already know that cantrip, you can learn a different cantrip of your cleric cantrip of your choice. The spellcasting ability modifier is based on whatever you increase here. Solar Luminance. When you cast light, you can have the light spell from it be sunlight. Once you use this benefit, you can't do so until you finish a long rest. That's also very cool because you're able to use a cantrip to generate sunlight, which is insane. And then Sun's Healing as a bonus action. As a bonus action, while within sunlight, graded by either daylight or maybe your light spell, you can expend one of your hit point dice, roll the die, and regain a number of hit points equal to that roll. That is once per short or long rest. I wish that was a little bit stronger. It's you're in the presence of sunlight, right? You also could just be outside in the sun. Like, I feel like we're automatically kind of thinking about the instances of you casting a spell that generates sunlight. If you're outside and it's sunny, you can just as a bonus action get a little bit of healing. I do wish this added your constitution modifier to the amount of healing that you get. It does feel like that's a little bit on the lower side, but either way, once per short or long rest. Again, I like what I'm seeing here in terms of feats. I don't like when a whole subclass is designed around just like altering the specific usage of a spell. But feat is an option I think I like because you're basically you're choosing to specialize in that, right? We saw this with like Cold Caster in the Forgotten Realms book. This is kind of giving you some pretty cool utility with the light spell. All right, Love Bites. Increase an ability score of your choice by 1, and then you get Enduring Pain. Immediately after you damage a creature with a melee attack or an unarmed strike, you can take a bonus action to give the target the charmed condition until the start of your next turn or until your allies damage it. Once per short or long rest. No save on that, by the way. You just hit them and they're charmed instantly. Charmed, reminder, is the you can attack the charmer or target the charmer with damaging abilities or effects, and the charmer has advantage on any ability check to interact with that character socially. So yeah, you hit somebody with a weapon, and they're just immediately charmed. You do have to use a bonus action to activate that charm, but they remain that way until the start of your next turn, which may not do a ton because there's nothing stopping them from attacking your allies, but they can't willingly target you with anything damaging. Now, again, that doesn't mean they can't cast an AoE and hit you. They can't just like hit you with like a specific thing or an attack roll. But again, definitely has some tactical benefits depending on the situation you find yourself in. Putrefy. Increase an ability score of your choice by 1. Necrosis. When you make a damage roll that deals necrotic damage, you can cause one creature taking that damage to have the poisoned condition until the start of your next turn. And then once you use that benefit, you can't do so until you finish a short or long rest. Again, getting a cool option for modifying anybody that's dealing necrotic damage. So, and it's when you make a damage roll. So even if you have a weapon, let's say, that does necrotic damage, you're making a damage roll that is necrotic. You could then use this option with a necrotic-based weapon. I feel like we're automatically thinking of abilities and spells that deal necrotic damage. Like this would be a pretty cool thing to have as a necromancer to just hit somebody. Unfortunately, it is only once per short or long rest, and it is only targeting one creature that you deal damage to. So if you hit somebody with like a big AoE necrotic spell, you only get to pick one, but still a cool concept. Again, I don't love how limited the usage is of this, but it does also just give them the poison condition, no saving throw. The only downside is if they're immune to the poison condition, which again, a lot of things are, this is useless. But again, I like where we're going with this kind of design. Rebuke, increase an ability score of your choice by 1. When you make a damage roll that deals radiant damage, you can cause one huge or smaller creature to have the prone condition once per short or long rest. Again, similar concept. When you make a damage roll that deals radiant damage, you could put this on a paladin. You hit somebody with your improved divine smite or one of your other radiant damaging spells. If they're huge or smaller, they are prone, period. No save, prone. Which also might allow you to maybe change up the weapon you're using instead of having a weapon that uses topple. You can get them prone and then be swinging with advantage. A lot of utility in that as well, which I like. Treacherous Allure. Increase your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma score by 1. You always have Charm Person prepared. You can cast it without a spell slot once per long rest, and then also use it with any spell slots you have. And then also you have advantage on attack rolls against creatures with the charmed condition. That's any creature with the charmed condition. So you could be the one who instinctively gives that by using Charm Person. It could be comboing with Love Bites, where somebody can just give somebody the charmed condition. Again, you could think about a very suave rogue being able to do sort of treacherous allure and maybe some other things to give themselves sneak attack. A lot of interesting options with this. Then we have Vampire Touched here, increasing ability or intelligence, wisdom, or charisma by 1. Choose one spell from the enchantment or illusion school of magic. You always have that spell and Spider Climb prepared. You can cast each of these once without a spell slot, but you must always target yourself with the Spider Climb. Per long rest, you can also use cast this with any spell slots of the appropriate level. And again, it uses whatever ability score you increase by this. So this is similar to like Shadow Touched or Fey Touched. Same concept, but this is Vampire Touch, so you're getting an enchantment or illusion spell first level alongside Spider Climb. So, again, situationally useful, but maybe good. Um, and then we have the epic boons. We have the Boon of Blazing Dawn, increase an ability score of your choice by 1 up to 30. Beloved of the Sun, you are immune to radiant damage. Blazing Strike, when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, the damage can be radiant or the weapon's normal damage type, your choice. Being able to just convert all your damage to radiant is wild because a lot of things are not resistant to radiant damage, so it's a big help. And then Burst of Sunlight. Once per turn, when you hit a creature with an attack that deals radiant damage, you can emit bright light in a 30-foot radius from you and dim light in another 30 feet. This light is sunlight. It is once per turn until the start of your next turn. So temporarily just radiating out sunlight, which is pretty nuts. I actually really like this a lot. Again, the design, I'm seeing it maybe a little bit more frequent. But again, this is the immunity to radiant damage. Immunity to damage, period, is pretty unlikely in 5th edition. This is a flat-out immunity. Granted, a lot of enemies aren't slinging radiant damage at you, but still. And then again, anytime you hit a creature with a weapon attack, and that's not limited. So, like, if you're hitting people with multiple attacks on a turn, you can always make it radiant. This is very powerful. This is definitely worth it. And this burst of sunlight, I think, is just kind of icing on the cake. Boon of Looming Shadows, increase an ability score of your choice by 1. Shadowy Stretch. When you take the attack action, your reach for your melee weapons increases by 10 feet until the end of your turn. So that's all the time. When you take the attack action, you increase by 10 feet, so beyond whatever it might be. And you can take the dodge action as a bonus action, always. Just whether you want it or not, it doesn't cost you anything. That's not a limited usage. This is pretty solid. Again, the reason it does say it's until the end of your turn, meaning you're not increasing your reach for purposes of opportunity attacks, but you are able to increase your reach on your given turn. And then again, dodge action is a bonus action kind of all the time. If you find yourself in I feel like depending on the character that's taking this, that might be your bonus action every turn. Is just like, again, if you're a monk, probably not, right? Because you already have access to things like that and you'll have flurry of blows. But maybe if you're a barbarian or maybe a paladin, you could just be dodging every turn, just radiating disadvantage with no kind of trade-off other than, the utility of that bonus action. And then Boon of Misty Escape, increase your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma score by 1, and then you get Gaseous Form. If you drop to 0 hit points but aren't killed outright, you can instead drop to 1 hit point and cast Gaseous Form without expending a spell slot for no action. When you cast this spell, you can target only yourself. Your fly speed is 20 feet, and you regain 10 hit points at the start of each of your turns for the spell's duration. The spell's spellcasting ability is the ability increased by this feat, and that's once per long rest. Again, Gaseous Form is concentration. Normally, your fly speed is 10 feet, so this is doubled. Normally, you don't regain any hit points. You now get 10 hit points every turn. This is concentration for an hour, mind you. So if you're maybe able to do this in a way where you don't you're able to get out of combat, you could easily heal yourself to full with 10 hit points every 6 seconds when you have an hour's worth of this ability. Also, don't forget that while in gaseous form, you have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing damage, immunity to the prone condition, and advantage on strength, dex, and constitution saving throws. And you can pass through any kind of narrow opening because you're basically floating gas. And then again, that's at the start of each of your turns. I also like that this is not like at the start of each of your turns until you're at half hit points. No, you'll just continue to gain hit points. So you can use this. And again, if you think about this being a vampiric thing, this is what it's supposed to be, right? You kill the vampire and then they turn into mist and then they try to survive. You could still obviously hit them, even though they only have 1 hit point. But if they're able to get away, then they can start healing up pretty quickly. And the real question is, I forget if you can come in and out of form. Shapeshift, spell ends, or if the target takes a magic action while in this form. Okay, you can't cast any manipulate, can't talk, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah. So I think when you what is it? Shapeshift. Let's see. Lets you shapeshift unless the description says otherwise. Any ongoing effects on you don't carry over. Okay. Yeah, I was trying to see if you're able to come in and out of gaseous form. From what I can tell, you don't get to come out of gaseous form. When you go into it, you are in it until you end it or until it ends, as far as I can tell. Spell ends if you drop 2 hit points or take the magic action to end it on yourself. While in this form, you have the fly speed, you can hover. Occupy the same space as a creature. Uh, yeah. So unfortunately, because it would have been awesome if you were able to maintain the concentration on this and then like bamf back into your form, fight a little bit more, and then go back into the mist. As far as I can tell, that does not work, but that would be a pretty cool option to it. And then again, here we have a little bit of artwork of a vampire hunter tangling with a vampire. So, yeah, like I said, not every one of these is a winner either, but some of these I do really like, or at least I like the design philosophy they seem to be going for with them. If we look at what's left in Astarion's Book of Hungers, we did not cover the couple of backgrounds. We have here 3 backgrounds, and then we have creatures, right? We have a handful of different stat blocks for monsters, which we will talk about here in a future video. So thank you all so much for watching. We'll probably do backgrounds next, then monsters. But in between there, we may be jumping back over to Adventures in Faerun to talk about the monsters in that book because there's some really awesome ones. The return of song dragons, for instance, which I'm super pumped about. And then once we kind of finish that book and this book, then we'll go into the Netherrealm's Fall book, and just in time, basically, for I think either next week or tomorrow for the final Lorwyn Shadowmoor book to drop as well. So, anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.